All of this and more with Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. He's a leading member of the Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks very much for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Do you know if there's been any specific threats against this Pope?
We have no reports of specific threats at this time. Having said that, and we have the best security in the world here in America. Having said that, we're also the freest people on this planet, and that in and of itself generates possibilities of threats.
So what's the primary security concern?
Well, primary security concern is the same things that we worry about every day, and that is the lone actor, the person who, as your reporter said, may have mental issues, wants to make a statement, doing something without any reason behind it. This is the biggest threat that's faced, but our people are up to that. They're used to dealing with it. They keep getting more and more experience. As we know, the drone thing's fairly new, but they've learned a lot already about drones from incidents, a lot of them that have happened right here in Washington, D.C., as you know.
Yeah, it's certainly true. The English language ISIS magazine, Dabiq, they recently singled out Pope Francis in an issue, one of the recent issues. How much of a threat would a group like ISIS, for example, pose to this threat? This Pope, I should say.
Well, ISIS is a threat to him, just as they are to other things in America. This kind of shows you the mentality of these people, that they would pick out someone like the Pope who's interested in peace and wanting people to get along. But they inspire people with this kind of talk and with the magazine that they put out. And so could they create a threat? They could possibly create a threat. But having said that, those are things that are also watched very, very closely.
Yeah, they were afraid of that lone actor, as you call him. Thursday morning, he addresses a joint meeting of the U.S. Congress. I assume you will be there listening to the Pope. What would you like to hear him say?
Well, I think that I'm Catholic myself, so obviously I've been through the Catholic schools, and I'm very familiar with the doctrines of the Catholic Church. And he's a man who is certainly a holy man. He views life differently than we do. Certainly, he comes at this more from a perspective of a global perspective as opposed to an American perspective. Whenever you have politics and religion collide, it's at very best an awkward moment, and they're not always congruent in what the objectives are of each of them. So we'll listen carefully to what he has to say. I hope people listen politely to what he has to say, whether they agree or disagree. And I also hope it doesn't turn into a political rally like the State of the Unions have over the recent years, indeed over recent decades, where people are popping up and clapping all the time. I think this should be much more like a respectfully listening to the message.
But you don't think there'll be any booing or anything?
Oh, I wouldn't think so. No, not at all. I think Congress will be very respectful to listening to what he has to say. We, as you know, we receive lots and lots of different leaders, both religious leaders and government leaders.
He's the first Jesuit pontiff. Did you go to Georgetown University?
I did not. I didn't.
Well, I just wanted to make that point. Very quickly on this, these Russian planes, on a totally different story, moving into Syria right now. Is that good or bad in this war against ISIS?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. You know, there's risks involved in this. You know, we have planes flying there too. When you have two countries that have as sophisticated and high-octane war machines like that in the sky at the same time, one has to be careful that there isn't a mistake made. It's been interesting to watch what's happened over this summer as the Russians really have doubled down in Syria and brought in all kinds of different things to support Assad. Today, CNN reported that the Russians have actually launched drones now flying over the Syrian countryside. Not a surprise because of the buildup. Those are the kinds of things that are going to continue to happen.
Senator Risch, thanks very much for coming in.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
James Risch from Idaho. Stay with